from Master Xian Jie, from Master Xian Chu, and so forth, in many different languages, English, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, and so forth. And so I don't feel so bad that I neglected you for the last 3 months. It turns out that we've been very busy doing the cheese. They had 12 weeks worth, 11 weeks worth of cheese, during which I was hoping that I would be able to do a lot of, take care of the backlog I've had. For example, I intended to write the second book on Pure Land, Pure Land Handbook number 2. I think it's how to make it to the Pure Land. I was hoping I would write a book, Chan Handbook number 3, American Wei Yang. And it turns out that the past 12 weeks or so, many fires propped up, and I had to take care of them. So I really been swamped. I have not been able to do much at all. Actually, I'm falling behind. Now I'm back to doing speaking Dharma for you 10 hours every weekend. Think about it. 10 hours of videos that we're making every weekend. Oh, that's insane. Okay, I remember our esteemed pastors, colleagues, they would spend the entire week to prepare for 20 minutes, maybe 45 minutes worth of talk, good words on Sundays. We're doing 10 hours every single week. So how I don't know how on earth I'm going to be able to catch up with my backlog here. It's because sometimes people get sick and they're in serious trouble. Past 10 weeks, 12 weeks, as 3 months, it's been like people got some severe COVID complications and therefore had to be helped right away, and many other issues, breast cancer and so forth. So I've been putting out fires after fire after fire. Sometimes it's depression, sometimes it's panic attacks, sometimes it's so on top of having to lecture every day. We also have a lot of work to do. You wouldn't imagine it. Every day to put on 1 hour's worth of videos. We have so many people preparing for it and working around the clock practically. And so for that, again, I'm very grateful for all the help and support we've been able to receive in the past few months, without which we wouldn't be able to do what we are supposed to do. So anyway, I understand that a lot of you have been keeping up. So, the other classes from my students, my disciples, have been able to help you out. And I wonder if as we go back to the usual format, please feel free to ask any questions about anything, anytime, okay, from anywhere, okay? No restrictions. I'm not going to keep on giving you a prepared speech until the last 5-10 minutes, and then we'll allow for questions. Ours is interactive, meaning I'm here to help you resolve your questions and your things that you don't understand, and your concerns and your problems and so forth. So to feel free to ask questions, okay? You'll be surprised on how the fact is that your problems, your questions are actually quite commonplace. It's not anything that's only unique to you, but also as you ask questions, others will also be able to benefit from your questions and my answers to your questions. All right, so any questions so far? Okay, as usual, okay, I'm keep on warming you up. Okay. It's funny because I was hoping to write a book on Wei-yang, even though I still have a lot of information I need to track down. So maybe this is a chance for me to ask you, Chinese-speaking people, especially people in China, there is ample information on Master Wei-shan, the patriarch Wei-shan, as in the many materials available online and on the hard format as well, print format as well. But as I asked for help for Master YongHua information once, I think, I received none. Okay, and so I wonder. Yes, go ahead.
There was some. I think there's a doc that there's some. Actually, there are a lot of stories of conversations between Master Wei-shan and Yang-shan in the Chan.
Yes, the Chan anecdotes. There are lots of those such Chan anecdotes.
And I remember those particular stories between the two, and I translate some. I didn't really translate that much, but there's a doc that there's Chinese and then it needs to be translated.
Yeah, I would appreciate getting those. But my interest also has to do with Master YongHua, what he did after he left Master Wei-shan and founded his own YongHua temple. Okay, he moved away from Master Wei-shan's temple, and then he went and founded his own temple. There's a reason for that. Okay, I'm beginning to understand as I went through the past 3 months meditating and doing some work, and I realized that there's a reason why he had to move away, and that he didn't stay in the Wei-shan temple, but he moved away from Yang and then founded his own YongHua temple. Okay, and later on, so you see the story of our lineage, our Chan lineage is very special. It's the only Chinese lineage where it's founded by 2 generations, the master and the disciples. Why wasn't it called Wei-shan Chan or YongHua Chan? But it has to be Wei-yang Chan school. It's because they teach differently. Okay? It turns out that after Master YongHua moved away, Master Wei-shan's temple basically died. Okay, didn't really prosper at all. And then Master YongHua went and founded his own temples, and actually then his disciples, then the later generations, recognized that the Wei-yang lineage also has to come from Master YongHua's contributions as well, not just Wei-shan alone. So you see, Wei-yang lineage has to be the combined teachings of Master Wei-shan and Master YongHua. Okay, and I'm hoping that maybe people in China, residents in China, maybe you can find out about Master YongHua's temple. They might have some materials there. Okay, I like the fact that it's very scant materials because that's how low-key and how self-effacing Master YongHua really was. Okay, but I'm very, very curious as to what he had to teach, what he taught, what Chan he taught, what kind of Chan style he taught after he founded his temple. So he decided that to stay within the Weishan temple is not good enough. It's not good at all. So he had to move away. Typically, in a Buddhist world, usually the disciples would stay on and run those way places, those temples, those branches. But no, Master YongHua decided, no, that's no good to stay at the Weishan temple. So he had to move away and teach something else, clearly. It's not the same teaching. Okay, I could guess what it is, some of it already. So I'm curious as to what was it he taught. People in China, could you help us out? Can you dig into it for me, please? I don't know where Yangshan is anymore. Okay, maybe there's some materials there. Comments? Is that too much to ask? You in China, and you can't even find out about Yangshan? Yes, go ahead, Black.
So Master YongHua.
Black.
I think we also mentioned this in one talk, but Master YongHua went to
after. Can you hear this lady here? You online people, can you hear her? Oh, okay. My hearing. Oh.
So he left. He went to a pretty. He went to the wilderness to establish a new temple in Jiangxi province.
Okay.
It's like in the middle of nowhere. It's still the middle of nowhere right now, I think. But less so. But it's
so that means that he had very scant support. His Dharma protector was some kind of rich official or powerful official at all. So that's why he's very special. He chose to, instead of staying on the Weishan temple and take advantage of all the facility and support, he said, no, that's not good for the Chan school. So he had to move away and start over, and taught his yang thing, his yang doctrines. Okay, so that's why the Chinese, I think you have the treasure there. I hope that some of you will spend the time to dig into it and share with us so that I can look at it and see what he was teaching. Okay, Weishan, I understand some of the Master Weishan's teachings already, and especially based on what he taught his disciples, his enlightened disciples, I could see why. Okay, but YongHua, I don't have enough stories or anecdotes about what he taught his disciples and what he did at his temples. Okay, and remember, the reason why it's called Weiyang is because later the later enlightened Chan masters realized that it's the combined teaching of Master Weishan and Master YongHua that made our school unique and very advanced and very special. Okay, and will someone dig into it, please, in China or somewhere? I think the materials are in China, not nowhere else. I hope it doesn't get lost. Okay, I'm sure it's somewhere, either in print format or online or something. Okay, it's a real treasure. It's a real Chinese treasure, Chan treasure, that we should preserve and share with the world. Okay, because you cannot let such a superior wisdom be lost at all. Okay. Questions or comments? Black.
So it is the same. It is the same document. I think we have looked up on the Yangshan, basically Yangshan Chanshi Yulu. It's in C beta. It's a pretty long doc.
So there's such a doc.
Yulu, yeah.
So Lu, that's excellent. then I need
So
to look at
there's
that.
both of
Okay.
yeah, there are his teachings to visitors and students.
But it's not translated, was it?
I think yeah, it's partially translated. I can send you the link.
So
It's there.
would you mind sending me those materials, because I think we can have a lot to learn. We can learn from that. Okay. Weiyang is, in my opinion, one of the most advanced Chan schools in China. I think it's the most advanced one, and that's why Master Shenhua, my late Chinese teacher, was tasked with bringing it to China, to America, to share with the world, to preserve Chinese Chan. Okay, the encapsulate, I think that covers basically. I don't know all the other Chan schools. I only know also, in addition, I look into the Linji school, and I look a little bit into the Yunmen and Caotong, but I haven't seen the kinds of depth that from those schools' teachings. For example, Caotong then became Soto in or something like that in Japan, and Linji become Rinzai in Japan. And I look at the Japanese level, and I'm disappointed. Let me tell you, it's compare nowhere near the level of the original Chinese schools. And even, for example, the Linji school is, to me, it's, if you will, is about one half of, or half of, or 2/3 of the Weiyang teachings, Weiyang principles, Weiyang depth, if you will. Okay. Because in Chan school, you can talk all you want. It's about, Chan is about the disciples. It's not about the teachers at all, in my opinion. Okay, the teachers is as good as his students will become. Because you heard that anecdote I said a couple of times. In China, there is a famous Chan master who has a big temple, and then he knows of a oarsman. That guy makes a living by ferrying the ferryman, to ferry people across the river, not too far away from a temple. Okay, and that ferryman is also a Chan master. And that ferryman had no disciples, but he was a monk, and he became enlightened. And so he said, once after you become enlightened, it is your responsibility to pass on what you know to the next generation. Okay. But so he complained to the abbot, his colleagues, his peer in the temple, the Chan master abbot in the temple. He says, "But I have no disciples because I'm basically earning a living by ferrying people back and forth in the river." Okay, and so, but I cannot let my knowledge go to waste. So will you send me some disciples, some people, some with potential, so that I can transfer my Chan knowledge to him or her, so that it doesn't get lost. Okay, so that's the concerns for these Chan masters. They want to make sure that they pass on their knowledge. Okay, that's very special in Chan school. So one day a monk came along and announced himself to the ferryman monk. He says, "I was sent by the abbot, but in a nearby temple, he told me to go see you." So that's after that monk took a long look at the ferryman monk, and he decided to announce himself. Was sent by the abbot, and by the time he said that, it was in the middle of the river. Okay, so the ferryman monk was so excited. Okay, so he dropped his oars and came over to where the young monk was standing and grabbed his clothes by the collars. Okay, like back then we used to wear clothes like this, Chinese, very Chinese style. So he grabbed the collars of that young monk's robe and said, "Quickly, speak!" And the young monk was so surprised by the attitude. And he said, and the fairy monk looked at him and said, he was so disappointed. Okay, so he pushed that monk to the river and said, "Oh, you're not worth it. Get off my boat." So it turns out the young monk could not swim. So the young monk was drowning and said, help. And the ferryman monk was so disappointed. He wasn't paying attention at all. He just said, you're a waste of time. I thought you were special, but you're really nothing special at all. So he pushed him aside, but it wasn't intentional. So the young monk as the young monk was drowning and asked for help and screaming for help, and the old monk then the old ferryman monk then realized that young monk was drowning, so he fished him up. Okay, and that young monk, when he was drowning, he nearly drowned. He became enlightened. Okay, and then so he came up and said, "Oh, master, so thank you, thank you." And so the ferryman monk look at him and realized that young monk is enlightened. Oh, by the way, okay, if you're good enough, your enlightenment level is good enough, you take a look at a person, you know they're enlightened or not. You don't need to do like Linji or the schools nowadays where they after a Chanchi, you have an interview with people, and you tell them your insights, your xinte, okay? You don't need to go through all that monkey business, if you will. In America, we call it monkey business, okay? If you're enlightened master, you take a look at your students, like that ferryman monk. He look, oh, really? I helped you become enlightened. So that's it. I've done my job. Hooray! So he went to the shore with the young monk, and then he quit doing the fairy thing, and he disappeared. He says, "I've done my job. I transferred my knowledge. I helped someone else become enlightened." Okay, and that is the spirit of the Chan school. You replace yourself. You try to replace yourself and don't let your knowledge go to waste. Okay, there's a sense of responsibility. So that's why the Chinese are extremely blessed in that they had such a profound and bountiful school of Chan, where they have so many enlightened masters. Okay, and so many wonderful Chan schools, and they're so strong, so healthy, so profound that I was telling my disciples, I said, right now we're extremely busy, but in the future, I wanted you, all of you, to pick up Chinese. Okay, there's something that I learned, that I discovered the last few months, is that I made fun of the Chinese style of teaching, the Chin's teaching, like Master Xuanhua's teaching. So I love him, but there are some part I found to be too Chinese. And it turns out that the way the Chinese taught their disciples, for example, 久坐生禅 is a simple phrase. It says, the longer you sit, you will produce a samadhi, you will enter samadhi. Just sit long, you will enter samadhi. It is a very profound way of teaching Chan, extremely profound. And but if you leave it like that, like my master, Master Xuanhua, left his disciples, the American disciples and Chinese disciples and Filipino disciples and Taiwanese disciples and so forth, okay, they don't get it. They don't get it at all. Why 久坐生禅? Okay, and the reason I say they don't get it is because they don't teach it anymore. If they really understand what it means, then they would have used the same phrase to help their disciples. You notice that. If you really understand it's how profound it is, how wonderful it is, then you want to make sure that knowledge passes on to the next generation. Okay, and so in the Chinese Chan, there's so many wonderful things like 久坐生禅. There's another thing that's so beautiful in the Chinese. You Chan is your good is to follow your good no advisor. Okay, such teachings are so profound that even the Chinese don't get it anymore. Okay. But I noticed that my masters, when he brought those to United States 5-6 decades ago, his disciples didn't understand those things. Proof is that if you really understand Chan is to follow good no advisors, then you ask yourself, which good no advisors are you following right now? Okay, so that's why the Chinese, let me tell you, the one of the appreciation I had the last 3 months is that the Chinese Chan is so profound. And the way they teach is so profound that it can't help but be lost in the future generation because few Chinese understood it anymore. So that's why Master Xuanhua brought it to the United States in 1950s, 60s. And gave it to us Americans, but few Americans got it either. Okay, what is the proof? So you see, my point here is that it's so profound that the Chinese could not understand it anymore. So he had to bring it to the United States where he can find people who can understand it and transmit it to the Americans. Look how many people in America understand it. Not many. They're not teaching it. They're not doing it themselves. And that's the nature of Chan wisdom. What is Chan wisdom? Chan wisdom is something you use for yourself every day. It's not something that you talk about, you argue, you debate, you demonstrate your superior knowledge. It's something you use every moment, every day. That's called wisdom as compared to knowledge. It's about what you do. Wisdom is to know what to do. not to know. To know is its book knowledge. To know what to do is Chan wisdom. You have a problem. How do you solve it? You have wisdom, you know how to solve it. You don't have Chan wisdom, you can't solve it. So Chan is very, very demanding, very rigorous. Can you solve the problems or not? You can't solve it, then you can talk all you want. You have no wisdom. So that's why, remember the ferryman monk? He says, I have wisdom, but I have to prove to myself that my wisdom is real because I want to transfer it to the next generation. So after he transferred it to that young monk, okay, he says, okay, then I have nothing else to prove to myself. I do have wisdom. Yes, Puma.
Thank you. Is that similar to Wei Neng wanting to get certification, wanting to make sure it's real? I don't know, it just sounded similar. Master Wei Neng.
Master Hui Neng.
You know how he became 4th stage Arhat, and then he wanted to make sure?
Yeah, he after Master Hui Neng became enlightened, experienced enlightenment after listening to that phrase. You should produce a mind that dwells nowhere. 因无所住而生其心. Okay, so when he heard that, he became enlightened, meaning that that phrase basically meant, did I explain that in the 6th Patriarch Sutra? If I explain it, I'm not going to repeat myself. I did?
Sorry.
I did. Then why do you ask?
No, I was just saying, is that like, I don't know, it just sounded something like Chan-like, because the fairy monk, right? He wanted to make sure, I guess. I don't know. And
It is such a beautiful phrase. I don't think I ever explained it to you. I explained like, little things for you, sheeps. But if I were to explain it for someone else, I would do it differently. Okay, so it depends on which days. But anyway, it's a beautiful, very profound thing. That is maybe it's too profound. That's why the Chan masters don't use it anymore, because it's not meant to be given to sheeps. You don't give a pearl necklace to a sheep. You know what I mean? Okay, that's why these sutras, Shannon, are so sacred that these Chan masters don't dare, use them indiscriminately. So that's why it's very rare. That's why even Master Hui Neng, when he heard that phrase, he said, "Oh wow, that's it." It's because it's a reminder for him. He knew that before. His DNA is like that already. That's why he never cared to get married, never cared for money, never cared to become an official, never cared to tread the tracks his father, his deceased father is an official. Remember that? As being an official, his father has the genes to become an official. By the way, the Chinese have all these genes. We cannot look down upon the Chinese. We can make fun of them. But you make fun of them long enough, one of these days, one of these Chinese said, "Are you kidding me? You're not even Chinese. I have the DNA, you don't." But then I would tell them, "Hey, Chinese person, did you know that the Chinese come from Vietnam? It's Jiao-Chu. Vietnam used to be Jiao-Chu. And then the Vietnamese, we sent all the Vietnamese who were prolific, making a lot of children to China, because Vietnam too small." That's my version of China history, anyway. So you see, where was I? How do we go to Vietnam again? So you see, the Chinese, I keep on making fun of them, but it's a provocation, if you will. I'm hoping one of these Chinese guys say, "You have a big mouth. I will come and I will see what you have a Chan you teaching. You claim we don't understand, and someday I'll show you I understand more than you do." It's just like I learned from a Chinese Chan master. That's why I can look at the other Chinese and say, "You don't understand Chinese, Chan." Anyway, where was I again? So anyway, the point here is that the Chinese have the DNAs, the genes matter, by the way, Puma. Our genes matter. Okay, so that's why, but what happened is the Chinese don't take good care of their genes. Yeah. That's why they are regressing. It's good to have my own class. Who cares if you don't like it? Any questions or disagreements? Sheeps. Yes, go ahead. Yes, Jane, go ahead, Jane. Can't hear you. Yeah. Too emotional.
Sheep has no S. The singular and the plural are the same.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're right. You're right. But for me, but to me, you're not the same. See how quickly I think, huh?
I have special
wait.
DNA.
Hey, listen, Professor. Listen, I disagree with you. To the Americans, to the farmers, okay, the peasants, they look at sheep are the same. For me, each of you is a different sheep. Special. Some of you are special sheep. They have the proper DNA from Vietnam. Okay? So that's why I call you sheep. But you're right. Grammatically, semantically speaking, sheep in English has no plurals. She's correct. Yeah. Nice try. Yeah. So anyway, let me tell you, the Asians in general, they have this Confucian teaching. Confucians basically are low-level Buddhist seeds. So when Confucius taught Confucianism to the Asians and spread throughout Asia, they planted the seeds of Mahayana, by the way. It doesn't come from me. It came from YongHua, my teacher. He says, Confucius is sent to China to start preparing people for Buddhism. And I agree. Okay? So the seeds there, okay, are low-level Mahayana. That's why later, then when the Buddha came, those people had the DNA, and the Buddha then have his power to his spiritual powers, okay, and to make those seeds come to fruition. Is it before or after? No, it has to be Indian. Buddha didn't go to China. Later, the Bodhisattva came to China. But anyway, the point here is that the DNA really matters. You cannot mess with it. Okay, so I know that with all the the Chinese history, Asian history, especially China's history of Mahayana and Chan schools, the wealth of the Chan teaching there. And that's one of the reasons why I told my disciples I'm committed to investing in all my disciples learning Chinese, because eventually I'm told them, here, I might as well share it with you. In about 5 years, 10 years, okay, if they start learning Chinese right now, about 5, 10 years, I will start asking them to bring up the Chinese Chan masters teaching they like. in every one of them. They like Master Wei Shan, fine. They like Master Yang Shan, fine. They like Master Ma Zu, fine. They like Master Shu Tou, fine. They like, Bai Chang. All these big Chinese names, okay? If they need to study those in Chinese, and they will discuss them in English. Okay? If they do that, okay, then our 21st century Chan school will proliferate so quickly. Because think about it. Think about it, folks. This is what makes me so excited. If I have like 20, 30 enlightened disciples at a pretty good level, low level enlightenment, dime a dozen. No interest. Okay? Like that wayside. I now have a new term for my peers. Wayside. Okay? If you wonder what it means, ask Chun, ask other people around. Anyway, if you have these people these bodhisattvas, mahasattvas who came to China because they felt that back then the Chinese were so special. Okay? So have such great DNAs that they can be developed. So that's why they had to appear to train them, to teach them. You see that? So that's why now that we study them, okay? So I've said in 10 years, I give my disciples, invest in them, and so my disciples will then investigate these great teachers, okay? Don't duplicate them because there's plenty of wisdom in each and every one of them. So you disciples will then discuss what you like about Mahatsu's teaching, okay? Shu Xin Shu Fo, okay? This mind is the Buddha, okay? Or the ordinary mind is the Buddha, one of those Chan masters. I forgot. There are too many great teachers. They are so wonderful that they should, I believe, a new third generation should study from those. That's how you make our English-speaking or 21st century and later future Chan treasure become bigger so quickly, okay? And then I hope by then I'm still not too senile yet, and I will chime in to help you understand the depth of the teaching. How's that? Sounds good? Then, what? Excuse me? And then our Chan knowledge base will multiply so quickly that we'll overtake the Chinese and become really American Chan. Because remember, all the Chinese teachings from the great Chinese teachers, the Chinese don't get it anymore. You need to be a certain level before you can understand these teachings. Okay, just you understand. Historically speaking, the bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, have to appear in the world in order to train the people who are qualified to be taught. So that's why in China, after Master Wei Shan and Yang Shan taught their Chan doctrines, later on, there's no more people who are qualified to understand. That's why Wei Yang disappeared and was folded under the Linji school because no one can understand the teachings anymore until Master Xu and Master YongHua came along. Okay? All right. Sounds good? Okay, so you don't have to be Vietnamese. You can be anyone. Just learn Chinese and get up there, okay? So that you can appreciate these teachings. So you can appreciate any kind of teachers that interest you, Okay, because there's plenty of great ones. Okay, good stories, captivating stories, profound stories, not as profound stories, profound anecdotes, not as profound anecdotes, and so forth. Okay, or you may even want to talk about Hua Tou, because the Koreans are crazy about Hua Tou, Gung An or Kon, whatever the Japanese call it. The Chinese, they do have good DNA. I don't know what happened to all the good ones there. If they're not careful, all these DNAs will fade and will disappear. They need to be nurtured. The seeds need to be nurtured. Okay. So anyway, questions or comments? Yes, go ahead, JMT. Can't hear you.
Hello, Master.
Hello.
저는 지난 3개월 동안 유산소에 있다가요. 지난주에 한국에 와서 오늘 이제 부산서에 왔습니다. 지난 3개월 동안 제가 너무나 경험한 것들이 너무 귀하고 행복해서 감사 인사 말씀을 드리려고 지금 잠깐 시간을 냈습니다. 아니, 마이크를 잡았습니다. 저희가 처음에 도착했을 때 처음에 부칠 다 끝나고 저희가 대회양이라는 걸 했었는데요. 그때 그게 저는 굉장히 큰 감동이었고 굉장히 가슴 벅찼습니다. 그리고 선칠 기간 동안 그 기간 동안 마스터 앞에서 마스터 앞에서 저희가 지금 온라인이 아닌 그렇게 법문을 들을 수 있다는 게 무한한 영광이었고, 그리고 또 느낌도 달랐어요. 그래서 하루하루가 너무나 행복하고 시간이 더디게 갔으면 참 좋겠다. 그런 생각을 많이 했었습니다. 그리고 또 좋았던 게 그 현동 스님 그리고 현순 스님 저희를 위해서 매일매일 식사를 준비해 주셨는데 저는 정말로 다음 날 어떤 음식이 나올까 정말 기대하면서 매일매일 행복하게 보냈었습니다. 그래서 그게 위산사가 전혀 낯설지도 않았고 어떻게 보면 정말 집보다 더 편안하게 잘 있었어요. 잘 먹고. 그래서 모든 스님 마스터와 모든 스님들께 감사 인사를 이 자리를 빌어서 드립니다. 소주 스님, 원택 스님, 종인 스님, 모든 스님들 감사드립니다. 사웅 스님 고맙습니다.
I didn't hear Sangwook Sini. No Sangwook Sini.
For the last 3 months, I was at Way Mountain Temple, and last week I returned to Korea. So I'd like to explain about my experience in Way Mountain Temple. For the past 3 months, I'd like to cherish my experience, and I'd like to show my gratitude. First time when I arrived in Way Mountain Temple, we did Fochi. And especially what I remember, I became more emotional, and what I remember the most is the great transference after the Fochi. And during the Chanchi,
Wait, let me stop. The great transference is a very, very special part of the ceremony that we we perform in order to ultimately help our loved ones get to the Pure Land. Okay, so it's very emotional for us and for our ancestors, for our parents, our loved ones as well. Okay, you will not believe how much you appreciate it. You know that they get the blessings they would not otherwise get because of your practice. If you didn't come to practice, it would not be performed. When we first started years ago, we didn't have the great transference. We didn't have the manpower to do it. Okay, and now we do. You know, I would unabashedly tell you, our great transference is probably one of the best, if not the best. Okay, so and it not because of the ceremony, but because of the benefits that it generates, and that the process that the ceremony generates. It's really, really wonderful. Okay, I'm sorry, continue.
So during Chanchi, it really touched me because I was able to listen to your Dharma talk daily instead of listening from online. And I wish that time goes slower so that I could enjoy those moments. And I'd like to thank to Venerable XTXS for cooking daily delicious food for us. And there are days that I think about what they would cook for the next day. What would be the dish for the next day? I look forward to eat what they cook.
Yeah, me too.
저도 그렇습니다.
Which is a shame, because in my master's temple, let me tell you, this is not Wei style at all. It's more like Yang style. You ask me. Wei style is that they eat very bland and they don't talk and they very pure. I think our style is more polluted, more impure, and more pleasurable. Lunch is such a pleasant thing. It's not torture at all. unless you're fasting. Yeah. Why would you fast? Crazy people. Anyway, thank you. And then anything else?
And I like to share that how when I first got to Wei Mountain Temple, I felt like it's not a new place. It's actually, if I were to say, it was more comfortable than my own house, my own home.
What? I hate it. It's not true. I feel so embarrassed. Have you seen photos of Wei Mountain Temple? People drive by and they say, is it a church or is it a Buddhist temple? They cannot decide. It looks like a church. It has a cross on top of the roof in front of the church. And the only thing Buddhist about it is some 2 Buddhist flags. So quite often you have people trying to come in and pray to God. That's why we have a God thing on the parlor. We used to have photos of Jesus, and we have stay in Jesus class praying to God. Okay, so I'm very embarrassed by it because it's so expensive to remove the cross from top of the thing. You know how expensive it is? It's so heavy. You need to rent that crane thing there. That's $465 a day. And then you have to remove it and you have to lower it. It's very expensive. So we left it there because it's just too expensive to remove. It's a lot cheaper to leave it alone. Anyway, you're weird. You're comfortable. I don't feel comfortable there. Okay, anyone else?
And I like to, I'm sorry, and she continue. And I'd like to thank Master and all venerables, Saju S님, Wontek S님, Chongin S님, and Sanguk S님 as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your
말씀드려도
feedback.
될까요? 한 가지만 더 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 저희 엄마께서 꿈을 꾸셨는데요. 아마 불칠 끝나고 전후 같아요. 외할머니께서 꿈에 나타나셔서 네, 나 이제 간다 하면서 환하게 웃으시면서 그렇게 가시더라고 하셨어요. 그것 또한 감사드립니다. 고맙습니다.
Master, I'd like to add one more thing. I think it's around the time Fochi, maybe before and after. My mom had a dream, and my grandma, which is my mother's mother, she showed up and she said, "I'm going," and then she smiled. So thank you so much.
Okay, I don't know what it means, but it sounds good. Okay, well, time is up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.